All right, get this. Ready to jump into the high-stakes world of sales. We're cracking open the Challenger sale today.
Love that book. It really throws out those tired old sales tactics and dives into what really works in today's world.
No kidding. It's not your grandfather's playbook, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's packed with research on what sets those top salespeople apart. The ones who are absolutely crushing it.
Totally. And it really emphasizes this idea that in today's market, customers are drowning in information, right? They don't need another sales pitch.
It's overwhelming out there.
Exactly. What they're craving are insights, real value.
They need someone to cut through the noise. And that's where this whole solution selling thing comes in, right? This book really digs into that.
Yeah, and it's not just about being good at your job anymore. It's about becoming a trusted advisor, someone who can guide the customer to a solution they might not even know they need.
Become more than just a salesperson. Become a problem solver. So this book starts by breaking down solution selling, but then it takes this really fascinating turn.
Right. They found this massive performance gap between those average sales reps and the superstars. We're not talking about a small difference here. We're talking almost 200% more productive.
Okay, now I'm really interested. What's the secret sauce? What are those top performers doing that the others aren't?
Well, they introduced these 5 sales profiles: the hard worker, the challenger, the relationship builder, the lone wolf, and the reactive problem solver.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So which one of those is the magic profile?
They actually make a pretty bold claim. Only one consistently dominates in complex sales.
I have to ask, who comes out on top?
It's the challenger. And it all boils down to this thing they call commercial teaching.
Commercial teaching. Okay, I love that term already. So what does that actually look like in action?
Well, think about it this way. Challengers don't just understand their customers' problems, they reframe how the customer sees the problem. They offer these aha moments, and those lead to innovative solutions.
So it's not just about selling a product, it's about selling a whole new way of thinking.
Exactly. That's where that teaching element comes in. The book really dives into how crucial it is to lead with insights, not just features and benefits.
Because at the end of the day, features and benefits only get you so far. Insights, on the other hand, those are gold.
Exactly. And they even break down how to structure your sales pitch to build credibility and really resonate with even the toughest crowds.
Okay, so they're not just throwing out theories here, they're giving you practical advice. Do they give any real-world examples of this in action? Because I think that would be really helpful for our listeners.
Oh, absolutely. They use this great example from Grainger, the industrial supply company. They totally flipped the script on how customers saw their business.
How'd they do that? I'm curious.
So instead of just pushing products, they focused on showing customers the hidden costs in their MRO spending.
MRO spending, for those of us who aren't fluent in industrial jargon.
Right, sorry, that's maintenance, repair, and operations.
Okay, so they're talking about all the stuff that keeps a business running smoothly behind the scenes.
Exactly. And by highlighting those hidden costs, they weren't just making a sale, they were saving the customer money and becoming a valuable partner.
That's brilliant. They reframed the entire conversation. Okay, this is making a lot of sense. Now, what about this taking control piece? Because that can be a little bit of a slippery slope, right?
It definitely can be. But it's not about being pushy. It's about confidently guiding the customer to what's best for them.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you walk that line? Because you don't want to come across as aggressive or controlling.
You're right. It's a delicate dance. And the book really emphasizes that. But they also give some really interesting examples of how companies have done this effectively. There's a fascinating case study from DuPont. They use this structured approach to negotiation planning.
I'm all about having a plan. Tell me more about this.
So they basically provide their reps with a system for analyzing the power dynamics of each deal. They call it situational sales negotiation. It's pretty fascinating.
So instead of going in blind, they're going in with a clear strategy. I like it.
Exactly. It's about knowing your strengths and having a plan to achieve a win-win outcome.
That's so key. Now, this is all really resonating with me, but it seems like this goes beyond just sales, doesn't it? I mean, these are valuable skills for anyone, no matter what field they're in.
100%. Whether you're leading a team, pitching a project, or just trying to get your ideas heard, being able to teach, tailor your message, and confidently guide the conversation, those are invaluable skills for anyone.
Absolutely. This has really got me thinking. Now, we've talked about those core actions of a challenger, but I'm curious, how does that translate to customer loyalty?
Ooh, that's where it gets really interesting. They did this massive study surveying over 5,000 customers, and get this, Only 38% of customer loyalty is tied to things like brand or product.
Wait, really? That's surprising. So what's driving the rest of that loyalty if it's not the product itself?
The sales experience. They found that a whopping 53% of customer loyalty is linked to how those customers feel about their interactions with their suppliers. So even if you have a killer product, if you're not nailing that sales experience, you're potentially losing more than half of your loyal customers.
It's crazy,
It
right?
really highlights how crucial those interactions are.
Totally. And here's where that teaching aspect we talked about earlier comes back into play. They found that customers were far more impressed by salespeople who taught them something new and valuable than those who just focused on uncovering their needs.
So it's about being a resource, an educator, someone who brings something new to the table.
Exactly. And not just any insights, but insights that are backed by solid data and tailored to the customer's specific situation.
It has to be relevant. No one wants generic advice.
Right. And the book actually uses a great example of this company called Sole.
Solely, they're the soy protein company, right?
That's the one. They realized they needed to move beyond simply selling soy protein and start teaching their customers about the bigger picture. So they actually created these things called customer outcome cards. Okay, customer outcome cards, I've never heard of that. Bring it down for us. What are those?
So think of them as a roadmap for their sales reps. These cards help them tailor their message to different types of customers based on their specific needs and priorities.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all sales pitch, they're having these really focused, tailored conversations.
Exactly, and it goes even deeper than that. They also mapped out these economic drivers and value drivers that mattered most to different people within the customer's company. This allowed them to go beyond just talking to the main decision maker.
Smart. You want to make sure everyone's on board.
Exactly. And that's where tailoring your message becomes absolutely essential, especially now when buying decisions often involve multiple people.
Oh, for sure. You got to get buy-in from the whole team.
Right. And the book actually talks about this idea of functional bias, which means different people within a company will see the same information through totally different lenses.
It's like what matters most to the operations manager is going to be totally different from what the marketing director cares about.
Precisely. And challengers get this. They know how to adapt their message to resonate with each person's priorities.
It all comes back to building that credibility, that trust. Because when you do that, people are way more likely to listen to what you have to say.
Absolutely. And a big part of that is knowing when to push back, right? But doing it in a way that doesn't damage the relationship.
Easier said than done.
For sure. Remember that example we were talking about earlier about reframing a price increase by highlighting the value the customer was already receiving?
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's a perfect example of taking control in a way that actually strengthens the relationship.
Because you're not being a pushover, you're being a trusted advisor.
Exactly. And that brings us to that final piece of the challenger puzzle. Really mastering that art of taking control.
Okay, let's dive into that. Because I think a lot of people struggle with this. How do you take control without, well, coming across as controlling?
It's definitely a delicate dance, but the book does lay out some really effective strategies for being assertive without being aggressive. And I think one of the biggest things they emphasize is the importance of controlling the conversation early on.
So setting the tone from the get-go. Interesting.
Exactly. Challengers don't wait for objections or concerns to be raised. They proactively address them head on.
So it's about being prepared.
You got it. And not being afraid to push back, but doing it respectfully and constructively.
I can see how that would take practice. It's a fine line to walk.
It is, but it's a skill that can be learned.
Which probably explains why they dedicate a whole chapter to the role of the sales manager.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, managers are the ones who are coaching, setting expectations, and creating the environment for this kind of success.
So it's not just about individual salespeople stepping up. It's about having the right leadership in place to support them.
100%. And the book actually identifies 3 key things that the most effective sales managers excel at. They call it selling, coaching, and owning.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break those down for us. First up, selling. What does it even mean for a sales manager to be good at selling if they're not the ones out there closing the deals?
It's all about embodying those challenger behaviors themselves.
Yeah.
They need to be able to teach, tailor, and take control so they can effectively coach their teams to do the same.
Lead by example. Got it. What about coaching? That seems like sales management 101, but I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye.
Right. Coaching is crucial. But the book highlights some really important nuances. For example, they found that the most effective coaching isn't about spreading yourself thin across the whole team.
You're not trying to coach everyone equally.
Nope. It's about strategically focusing on your core performers.
Interesting. Why focus on the core? I feel like I would be tempted to dedicate more time to either the low performers or, really try to develop my superstars.
It's tempting for sure, but their research shows that your core performers actually offer the biggest opportunity for growth and impact the team's overall performance the most.
Makes sense,
Yeah,
because those low performers often require a lot more time and resources for smaller gains.
exactly. And your superstars are likely already performing at a high level.
It's about finding that sweet spot. Coaching the core it is. Okay, last but not least, what about this owning thing? What does that even mean for a sales manager?
It's about treating their territory like it's their own mini business. They're not just managing a team. They're thinking strategically about how to grow, develop their people, and drive results.
So it's that entrepreneurial spirit. I like it.
Exactly. And the book actually highlights how closely tied this owning mentality is to innovation. The best managers are always looking for creative ways to overcome challenges, unstick deals, and find new paths to success.
They're not just following a script, they're thinking outside the box.
Exactly. It's a totally different mindset. It's about moving beyond an efficiency-focused approach to one that embraces effectiveness and innovation.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you encourage that kind of shift? It seems like you would have to help managers break some pretty ingrained habits.
That's where it gets really interesting. They actually talk about this thing called narrowing thinking, which is a fancy way of saying that we tend to limit ourselves to existing options instead of exploring new ideas.
Narrowing thinking, that sounds like the death of innovation.
Right. So to combat that, they actually suggest using tools like the Scamper framework, which helps managers ask a series of questions designed to get those creative juices flowing.
Scamper. Okay, that's a mouthful. What is that? Some kind of acronym?
It is. It stands for substitute, combine, adapt, magnify, modify, put to other uses, eliminate, rearrange, and reverse.
Okay, so maybe it's a bit much to remember off the top of your head, but I can see how running through that list would really force you to think differently.
Exactly. It's all about opening up to possibilities you might not have considered otherwise.
Love it. Now, we've talked about the theory, but how are companies actually using this challenger model in the real world? Because I think that's what our listeners are really curious about.
Well, that's what the book's final chapter is all about. They share some incredibly insightful lessons from early adopters, covering everything from recruitment and training to sales enablement, the whole nine yards.
Give us the highlights. What are some key takeaways?
Well, one thing they really stress is the importance of screening for challenger tendencies during the hiring process.
So stack the deck in your favor from the very beginning.
Exactly. And they even provide sample interview questions that are designed to help identify those potential challengers early on. They also talk a lot about the importance of ongoing training and development, and not just one-time things, but really helping those sales reps hone those challenger skills over time.
It's about creating a culture of learning.
Yes, and that's where senior leadership plays a really crucial role. They're the ones who are setting the tone, providing the resources, and really creating an environment where this kind of transformation can flourish.
It's not something you can just force overnight. It takes a real commitment from the whole organization.
100%. And I think that's a really important point. The challenger sale isn't about quick fixes. It's a long-term commitment to becoming a more effective, customer-centric organization. And that takes time and effort.
Absolutely. But the payoff can be huge.
Huge. And that's really the beauty of this approach. It's not just about boosting sales. It's about building stronger, more valuable relationships with your customers.
Which, at the end of the day, is what it's all about, right?
100%. And you know what's really cool? These challenger principles, they can actually be applied in some pretty unexpected areas. Like, remember how we were talking about reframing?
Yeah, reframing the conversation, changing the perspective.
Exactly. The book gives this great example from a financial services company, and they totally changed how they presented data on customer complaints.
Customer complaints, that sounds like a tough one to reframe.
I know, right? But instead of just focusing on like call volumes and response times, they actually took it a step further. They calculated the financial impact of those complaints.
Oh, wow. So instead of just presenting a problem, they're highlighting the cost of inaction.
Exactly. And by speaking the language of the business, their recommendations became way more compelling.
That's brilliant, because suddenly it's not just about making customers happy. It's about protecting the bottom line.
Exactly. And that's a perfect example of how you can gain influence, even in a situation where you might feel like you're just the messenger.
It's about positioning yourself as that strategic partner, right? Someone who understands the big picture.
100%.
Okay, so I'm seeing the theme here. It's not about just doing your job. It's about elevating your role and becoming a thought leader, someone who brings valuable insights to the table.
Absolutely. And that takes confidence and a willingness to, challenge assumptions.
Which reminds me, before we wrap up this awesome deep dive, we have to talk about those self-diagnostics in the book.
Oh, yeah. Those are great. They're designed to help you kind of assess your own natural sales tendencies and really pinpoint areas for growth.
All right, listeners, if you're ready to put yourselves to the test, grab a pen and paper or open up that notes app because we're about to get real.
We're going to walk you through 10 statements, and all you have to do is rate yourself on each one using a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being strongly disagree, and 10 being strongly agree.
Super easy, right? Okay, statement number 1. I understand my customer's business so well that I'm able to push back when necessary, and they usually appreciate it.
Take a moment to really reflect on that statement and jot down your score.
Ready for number 2? Here we go. I readily and easily build rapport with my customers, putting them at ease.
Again, on a scale of 1 to 10, how strongly do you agree? No right or wrong answers here. Just be honest with yourself.
All right, statement number 3. I am a true expert in the products and services I sell, comfortably exceeding the knowledge that any expert purchaser might have.
Don't be shy now. Give yourself an honest score. Confidence is key.
Okay, number 4. This one's a good one. I often risk disapproval in order to express beliefs about what is right for the customer.
This one's all about having those tough conversations when it really matters.
All right, moving on to statement number 5. When negotiating with customers, I understand what drives value with different customers, adapting my message accordingly.
So really think about how you approach those negotiations. Do you tailor your approach, or is it kind of a one-size-fits-all situation?
All right, number 6. I can identify the key drivers of a customer's business and use that information to customize my approach.
So this one's really about how well you understand your customer's business goals.
We're on a roll. Statement number 7. When it comes to fulfilling customer requests, I usually resolve everything myself as quickly as possible.
Think about how you typically handle those customer requests. Do you jump in and own it?
Okay, number 8. I love teaching customers about their business, even if it means occasionally having to push them out of their comfort zone.
Are you a teacher at heart or just a salesperson? This one might reveal a few things.
Almost there. Statement number 9. I'm comfortable discussing money on commercial terms early on in the sales process.
So how assertive are you when it comes to talking about the financial side of things?
And finally, statement number 10. I'm willing to put in long hours and go the extra mile to make sure my customers are happy.
This one's all about effort. How much are you willing to put in to build those relationships?
Okay, listeners, take a second to review your answers. Hopefully you've been brutally honest with yourselves. No judgment here.
Now, for the moment of truth, if you scored an 8 or above on statements 2, 5, 6, 8, or 9, you're showing some strong challenger tendencies.
So if those statements really resonated with you, you're probably already well on your way to embodying that challenger spirit.
You got it. But don't worry if you didn't score that high, because this isn't about labeling yourself or anything like that. It's about identifying those areas where you can develop those challenger skills.
It's like a roadmap, for becoming more effective and impactful.
Exactly. And the great thing is, the book actually offers really specific guidance on how to develop each of these skills. So no matter where you're starting from.
There's a path forward. I love that.
Right. It might take a little work and dedication, but anyone can develop these skills.
I love that this episode isn't just about sales. It's about embracing that growth mindset, always looking for ways to improve.
100%. It's about pushing ourselves to be the best we can be, no matter what we do.
Now, I know some of you might be thinking, okay, what if I didn't score high on those challenger statements? What does that mean for me?
It's a great question. And honestly, those other scores might actually reveal some of your hidden strengths.
Right, because let's be real. There's no one right way to be successful.
Exactly. And those other sales profiles we talked about, like the hard worker, the relationship builder, the lone wolf, the reactive problem solver, they all have their own unique strengths and their own ideal roles.
So if you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I didn't get an 8 on those challenger statements, what does that mean? Don't sweat it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It doesn't mean you're doomed to be terrible at sales. It just means that you might have different strengths,
Right.
strengths that would make you amazing in other areas.
Okay, so it's about finding the right fit. I like that.
Exactly. Like, let's say you scored yourself really high on that first statement, the one about really understanding your customers and being able to push back when you need to. You might have a natural talent for building those strong relationships.
So you're saying they could be a rock star relationship builder.
Bingo. And while relationship builders might not be the best fit for, like, closing those super complex deals, they're incredible at nurturing those long-term customer relationships. Think account management or customer service, roles where building that rapport is absolutely crucial.
It's about playing to your strengths. I love it. Okay, so what about the folks who really connected with that statement about risking disapproval to do what's right for the customer? Because that takes some guts.
Oh yeah, that's our lone wolf. Those are the people who trust their instincts and aren't afraid to bend the rules a little bit to get things done.
And honestly, I can see how that kind of independent streak could be super valuable in certain situations.
Absolutely. Lone wolves might not be the easiest to manage, but they can be incredibly resourceful and driven to find those creative solutions when everyone else is hitting a wall.
Okay, that makes sense. What about those listeners who really identified with that statement about resolving customer requests quickly? So they're all about efficiency.
Oh, those are our reactive problem solvers, the folks who can just figure things out.
Those people are
Yeah.
worth their weight in gold, let me tell you.
Absolutely. And while they might not be as comfortable with, like, proactively challenging customers or anything like that, their ability to just dive in and solve problems,
Yeah.
invaluable.
Totally. They keep things running smoothly. Okay, last but not least, what about the folks who are nodding along to that statement about going the extra mile for their customers? The ones who always put in the extra work.
Ah, those are our hard workers. Always willing to put in the time and effort to get the job done, no matter what.
They're the ones who go above and beyond, day in and day out.
Exactly. And that dedication, it can be a huge asset, especially in roles that require a lot of diligence, persistence.
Makes sense. So where would you see a hard worker thriving?
Think sales operations, maybe inside sales, where organization and follow-through are really critical.
I love this self-diagnostic. I really do.
Yeah.
Because it reminds us that there's no one right way to be successful in sales or in any field, really.
Yeah.
It's about understanding your natural tendencies and finding the role that allows you to shine.
100%.
So for our listeners out there, embrace your strengths. Even if you weren't scoring super high on those challenger statements, maybe you're a rock star relationship builder or a problem-solving ninja.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to, challenge yourself to develop those challenger skills, even if they don't come naturally at first.
Because at the end of the day, we can all learn to be more effective, right?
Absolutely. We can learn to communicate better, build stronger relationships. It's a journey.
And that's what I love about this deep dive. It's all about growth and pushing ourselves to be better.
It's about realizing that we all have the potential to be challengers no matter what we do.
So, to wrap things up, if you're feeling inspired to step up your game, remember those core principles. Teach, tailor, and take control. And don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
Go out there and be amazing.
That's a wrap on this episode. We'll catch you next time.